Hello, hi, welcome or welcome back. My name is Katie, and in 2024, I disassociated, was depressed, and read 100 books. So instead of just sitting here and telling you about each book that I read this year, I've decided we're going to do a tier ranking to kind of sort the books. We're not doing star ratings, we're not doing full-on reviews, but we're just doing vibes. How these books made me feel and have made me feel ever since. So we have 5 categories. First is the most important. This category is gonna stay with me forever. These are books that they didn't have to be perfect. They didn't even have to be 5 stars, but they were impactful enough that I'm going to be thinking about them for probably the rest of my life. Next, we have no notes. So this is kind of like the perfect category. Yes, it is underneath gonna stay with me forever because, like I said, a book doesn't have to be perfect to be impactful. However, no notes means your book was pretty darn perfect. I got no notes on it. Next, we have neutral good. This is fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this. Was it my favorite? No, but it was good. It was a good read. It might not have been for me, but it was maybe for somebody else. Then we have It's a Vibe. This is it's kind of silly. It's not serious, but it's a vibe. That's really all I have to say. Next, we have Should Have DNF'd. These are books that I regret reading till the end, or books that I did in fact DNF, which is not a lot, because I apparently hate myself. Then we have Immediately Jail. These are books that I'm sorry to say I hated, whether it was the writing style, the plot, whatever. Immediately Jail. I didn't like you and you're gone. Those are my rankings. I want to say that there will probably be light spoilers. I'm not going to dive into plots and spoil plot points, but I might say something like a character dies or there is a pregnancy. I'm going to say things like that because I feel like I need to in order to get my point across, but I'm not going to be doing crazy spoilers. So just a heads up, please get yourself a snack, get yourself a drink, and let's talk about the 100 books I read this year and how they made me feel. Okay, so first we started the year off strong with a Hunger Games reread. I'm just gonna go ahead and put Hunger Games, Catching Fire, and Mockingjay all in Gonna Stay With Me Forever. However, they could also go in no notes. I have 0 notes on this trilogy. I thought it was absolutely perfect when I read it back in middle school. I think it's absolutely perfect now. I think of all of them, Mockingjay is my favorite. I know that's a hot take, but I do think it's the most powerful, in my opinion, movie-wise and book-wise. Next, I finished a book series that I started in 2023. Crazy that that's now 2 years ago. This was the Raven Cycle quad series by Maggie Stiefvater. I think I'm probably saying that right. So I finished with Blue Lily, Lily Blue. That's the 3rd book, and The Raven King. So the 3rd and the 4th book, I'm putting those in no notes. They were near perfect. It ended exactly how I needed it to, and I really enjoyed the series as a whole. It feels kind of weird to only be talking about the last 2 books. I think I would put all 4 books in the no notes category because they were just that good. I really enjoyed it. Okay, next I read Everyone in My Family Has Killed Somebody by Benjamin Stevenson, who has quickly become an autobiography author. I love this little series of his. It's about an author named Ernest Hemingway who just kind of stumbles into crime and solves it, and he's really good about it. I'm gonna put this in no notes. I'm obsessed with this series. I think it's so fun and unique and just a really good time. Somehow he always figures it out and solves the day. This one is very wintry. The whole family is stuck at a ski lodge and a bunch of murders ensue, and this bumbling guy just figures it all out. It's really good. I read The Handmaid's Tale. Obviously Gonna Stay With Me Forever. Also no notes. Obviously a really impactful book, a really important book in my opinion, especially as a Christian, especially as somebody who believes in Jesus Christ with my whole heart. I think that this is something that everybody needs to read. Everybody needs to read, especially Christians who could maybe learn a thing or two and prevent some things from happening. Moving on. You've Reached Sam. This is about 2 teenagers who are dating and in love, and Sam passes away. That's not a spoiler. That's the plot of the book. And Julie calls his phone number. That's his girlfriend. She calls his phone number after he's passed to hear his voicemail, hear his voice, and Sam picks up, and they're able to have kind of a series of conversations. This was definitely more YA leaning, so I'm putting it in neutral good because it was a well-written book. I did enjoy it, but it was maybe just a tad too young for me. I'm not exactly the target demographic, but it was a moving, special book, and I think for a younger audience it would hit like really good. Next we have Meet Me at the Lake by Carly Fortune. This is going in, it's a vibe. There ain't nothing wrong with this book. Was it spectacular? No. It's about two people who, first I want to say Carly Fortune is Canadian, and so there's a lot of like Canadian lingo and like places and things, and as a Canadian also, I really like reading that sort of thing because I feel like media is inherently American, whether it's TV shows, movies, books, music, like just very American. And so like hearing like brands that we only have in Canada and places that are in Canada, like that kind of thing, I just really like, and it's really special. And it's like a summary, happens at the lake obviously, but it's about two characters who meet one day and they spend like 24 hours together, and then they're like, we're gonna go our separate ways, and a year from now let's meet at the lake. Only one of them doesn't show, and then however many years, 10 15 years later, they meet up again, and it's just like a second chance romance kind of book. Again, it wasn't spectacular, but it's a vibe, and there's nothing wrong with that. Then I read Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin, which is gonna stay with me forever. I think it is one of my favorite books of all time, if I'm being honest. I do think about it constantly. This is one of the most beautiful platonic love stories I've ever read, and I feel like there's just not a lot of those anymore. But it's about Sam and Sadie who meet when they're in the hospital as children, and they bond over their love for video games. They meet again like 10 years later and decide to become video game developers together. I think the book is so uniquely written, like, not to spoil anything majorly, but like a character dies, and so as they're dying, kind of in like a coma-like state, they go through their life like in the style of a video game. Like, if you take this turn here, this is how your life turns out. Like, do you want to start from go? Like, whatever. It's really unique. There's also a couple of chapters that take place in this like virtual lifestyle sim player game. Like, you go online as an animated character and you can like talk to real people around the world. I don't play a lot of video games, so I don't know what that's called. The writing style is just very unique, and I really loved it. And I think it's just so special. Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow is a quote from Macbeth, which is also big Shakespeare in this household. So yeah, loved it a lot. Okay, and then I read a book called My Dark Romeo, which is immediately jail. Now, I have a hard time believing that this book was written by two women because it seems like they actually hate women. This book is, I don't even know how to describe it or really how I came across it. I was looking for some enemies to lovers, which I have learned does not work outside of a fantasy landscape. This is a real world enemies to lovers, which doesn't even make sense. It's an arranged marriage because our guy Romeo is like making out with this girl in the woods, and then everybody sees and it's like, oh no, her innocence, her dignity is gone. She has no choice but to marry him. Like, her dad is like, you have to marry him now. Like, you've been completely ruined. And so she does. And like, he did it on purpose because whatever, business, I don't even know, but it's dual perspective too. And the way that this man talks about this woman, even in the context of like an enemies to lovers, is so disgusting. Like, I should have DNF'd, but I'm going to take it a step farther and say that this book needs to be in jail. There are a lot of people who like this book, and to each their own. I want to respect that we each have different opinions, and art is subjective. However, I hated this book. I didn't like it at all. Moving on, All Good People Here by Ashley Flowers goes in neutral good. Ashley Flowers is the host of the Crime Junkies podcast, which is a true crime podcast that I love. I've been listening to it for years, and so when I heard that she had a book, I was like, I gotta read that. And props to her for like coming up with this whole like true crime situation. Obviously not true crime because it's not, it's fiction, but this whole like crime scenario. Obviously she's got years of experience. She's done so many different or I guess covered so many different cases that she has a lot to draw from. So kudos to her for creating this whole story. Was it the best like crime book I've read? No, but I really like it, and I think crime is something that is so hard to do because you have to wrap it up. You have to be leaving clues. You have to be leaving suspects. You have to misdirect your audience, but like not in like a Chekhov's gun kind of way. Like, there's so many things that you have to do to make crime work, and I think it worked. Was it perfect? Maybe not, but like so good. I love it. Next we have Wildfire, which is part of the Maple Hills series. Icebreaker was the first one, which I read in 2023, and then Wildfire, which is about another hockey team member and a girl. It's a vibe. Like, I think you have to know what you're getting into when you're picking up this book. Like, it's just a romance with some smut. Like, there's nothing serious. There are no stakes. It's literally just a vibe, and I don't know how else to describe it. People who look down on this series, like, chill, okay? Like, let us have our cake and eat it too. Not everything has to be a world-class essay winning Pulitzer Prizes, okay? We can have our little hockey romance books and be fine with that. Thanks. The Perfect Marriage by Geneva Rose is going into no notes. First of all, when I was reading this book, I loved telling people because they'd be like, oh, what are you reading? And I'm like, oh, it's a book called The Perfect Marriage. And people thought it was like a self-help marriage book. It is not. It's another crime thriller book. This woman is married. She's also like a criminal defense lawyer, and she's like the best in the business. And then one day, her husband's mistress is found dead, and he is being accused of murder, and she has to defend him. This book kind of like hits the gas and doesn't let up. It was a wild ride. I was like, take me on this ride, Geneva. I'm going to go with it. And I had a good time. No notes. Again, very complex crime mystery setup. Very well done. Perfectly executed. Loved it. Then we have The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. Gonna stay with me forever. 5 stars, no notes, very good. This is about a ghost writer who falls in love with a ghost. Are you kidding me? That's exactly up my alley. I love it. Ashley Poston, there's more books from her on this list, but she does magical realism so well. I love everything that I read from her. Then we have A Hue of Blue. This book, no notes. I thought it was really good. It was really impactful. It's about 2 college students who they have like a bit of a toxic relationship. I wouldn't go, I read it at the beginning of 2024. I wouldn't go as far as to say it was like abusive, but it was like, they are not good for each other. I'm not sure that they ever like officially dated, but it was just a very grounded and realistic exploration of what toxic relationships look like, how to deal with them, how to break free of them. I just thought it was really well done, and it just it felt very impactful. I really enjoyed reading it. It was very good. So next, I did read the Court of Thorns and Roses series. I also read the Throne of Glass series later on, so I'm going to talk about that later in the video. I just want to preface this by saying that knowing what I know now, I no longer support Sarah J. Maas and her work, but I did previously read these books, and they did count to my number of 100 books read this year, so I do feel the need to include them. This is a bit of separating the art from the artist moment, if you can. I know that it's tough, especially people who have been impacted by Sarah J. Maas and her work, so I'm going to try to do this as sensitively as possible, knowing that moving forward, I'm not going to be purchasing her books or supporting her monetarily. All of that being said, I did really enjoy the Court of Thorns and Roses series as I was reading them. I'm going to put the first book and the second book in Gonna Stay With Me Forever. I thought that they were really well written. And at the time, I hadn't done a whole lot of fantasy, and I think because of that, these books were really impactful and have kind of embedded themselves in my mind. In A Court of Thorns and Roses, Feyre's a human who kind of comes into the fairy world. The last 100 pages were such a roller coaster, such a wild ride. And then of course the second one, which is the most widely acclaimed and everybody's favorite, was so good. I really enjoyed it. It does have its flaws, and especially knowing what I know now about Sarah J. Maas, I can see those flaws a little bit more clearly. But that being said, at the time, very impactful, and I enjoyed them very much, so it's only fair to include those on this list. Then the third book, A Court of Wings and Ruins, neutral good. It was fine. I think after the first 2 books, the series did go downhill for me personally. My attention was a little bit lost. So neutral good. I think it could have and should have ended there at the trilogy. There are 2 more books, but before I went to finish the series, I read Powerless by Lauren Roberts, which is going into Should Have DNF'd. I have so many problems with this book. I didn't enjoy it at all. It was so incredibly hyped up that I kind of felt like I had to read it, if I'm being totally honest. But there's not a single original thought in this book. It is pretty much the exact plot of Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. And that's been controversial the last couple of weeks at the time of filming this now, that's come to light. Lauren Roberts used to market this book as Hunger Games meets Red Queen, and it couldn't be more accurate because it takes so many ideas from those books that this book doesn't feel original. It also feels a little AI generated. Not that it was written by AI, but that the author plugged in like, what are the most popular fantasy tropes into ChatGPT and just expanded on everything that ChatGPT spit out. Like, I think with books, like, you can have 1 or 2 tropes, right? Like, pick your tropes. Don't try to squeeze 100 in there, because it's just, I just don't like it. So I should have DNF'd. Then I went back to finish A Court of Thorns and Roses. A Court of Frost and Starlight is like a little Christmas novella. It's very short. It's a vibe. I think it gets a lot of hate for the context that it doesn't like deserve. It's just a flatline little Christmas novella. It's fine. I'm also gonna put A Court of Silver Flames in there. This is the last or the most current book in the series about Feyre's sister Nesta, who I don't care. I simply don't care. But it's a vibe. Like, it's in the universe. It's been built upon. Like, it's just, it is what it is. Then we have Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I'm putting Gonna Stay With Me Forever. Listen, again, I know a lot of people don't like this book or don't care for this book. I really do. And I think a big part of that is, as somebody who is chronically ill, books are a great escape mechanism. However, I don't get to see myself with chronic pain, chronic illness in fantasy settings, and to see like the main character Violet Sorrengail has chronic pain, and to see like accommodations made in a fantasy setting, so cool. And I loved that. I also just love dragons. Like, it doesn't have to be that deep. Love dragons. Great time. Then we have Cleopatra and Frankenstein by Coco Malors. I'm gonna put this in neutral good. I still have like a hard time rating this, because I remember at the time of reading it, I gave it like a pretty low score, because I was like, that was tough. Like, that, the subject matter and everything was tough to read, and maybe it wasn't intended for me. Like, maybe that was a little bit too much for me. But the more I look back at it, I'm like, was so well written. It was so engaging. It was beautifully written. Like, there were so many different, like, not point of views, like it wasn't told in first person, but like so many, like the different chapters focused on different characters, and it was balanced so well. So I gotta give credit where credit is due. I'm gonna put it in neutral good. It was hard for me to read. That's what I'll say. And that's just because of the subject material. It was tough and a little triggering at times, but good all the same. Then we have Everyone on This Train is a Suspect, which is the second book in the Ernest Cunningham series, follow up to Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone. Put Ernest Cunningham and his crime solvingness on a train. Love it. No notes. And then I read Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros, which is the sequel to Fourth Wing. And I know people, again, are really mixed feelings. I feel like a lot of people think that the quality went down from the first book. I am not of that opinion. I really enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed the first one. Gonna put it in Gonna Stay With Me Forever. Funny Story by Emily Henry is gonna go in. It's a vibe. Was it world changing? No. I do feel like, in my opinion, I was expecting a lot more based on like how TikTok was reacting, and then I personally just felt a little bit let down. But like, it's a vibe. It's a vibe. This is about like woman, her fiance leaves her for man's girlfriend, and then they end up living together because they've both just been abandoned. And I thought, like, what a unique idea. I'm not sure if it was executed like perfectly, but it was fine. Earl's Trip by Jenny Holiday goes in. It's a vibe. I just don't think that historical fiction is for me. Nothing wrong with how it was written or the story itself. I will say, like, it was described on the Indigo website as like Bridgerton meets Ted Lasso. It did not deliver on that at all. So that was disappointing. It is what it is. Next we have One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. Gonna Stay With Me Forever. I love this book. Kind of dark gothic fantasy, but it was so rich. Like, the world building and the magic system was so in depth and so rich. Elspeth has like a little demon monster living in her head that she communicates with, and I felt like that relationship was so good and so thoroughly explored upon. Like, is he an enemy? Is he like a father figure? Like, it was so good and so well executed. I loved it. I loved it. Next we have The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. No notes. No notes. I love this book. I love this series. So you know what? Let's just go on to the second one, which is The Wicked King, which is also going to go there. And then I'm also going to put The Queen of Nothing there, the whole trilogy. No notes. Like, I thought it was so perfectly executed, like humans living in the Fey world, but like the Fey world and the modern human world like coexisting at the same time. I thought was so unique. I was like, this, I've never read like this done before. Like TikTok and TVs exist over here in the same time that like fairy realm and like medievalness is existing over here. Like so unique, so cool. And I just had like a fun time the entire time. Then we have Love and Olives. I'm gonna put in It's a Vibe. This is about a girl reconnecting with her father who has been searching for the lost city of Atlantis. I love Atlantis. I love like mythology like that. So I was like, this is gonna be pretty cool. It takes place in Greece, thus Love and Olives. However, it was too young for me. And that's something I'm still figuring out with YA, because I feel like, you know, I'm 27, I'm pushing 30, and like some YA, like the Cruel Prince series, for example, super well done, engaging, rich, didn't feel young. I didn't feel like I was being talked down to, but like something like Love and Olives, I think maybe is more for like 15 to 17 years old, like just a little bit too young for me. Then I read The Cartographers by Peng Shepherd, and I'm gonna put that in neutral good. It was really good. I love cartography, and like it was like stuff like a world hidden in maps and like very complex, race against the clock, very good adventure book. Then I read Powerful, which is the novella after Powerless. Should have DNF'd, but this one again was a novella. It was very, very short. So light spoiler, this book, Powerful, this novella, Powerful, is about a character in Powerless who died. However, we spent so little time with that character in Powerless that Powerful meant nothing to me. I was not attached to that character in any way, shape, or form that she needed her own novella. Like, I didn't care enough. Like, I had no time to form an attachment in Powerless that this novella didn't need to happen. Okay, moving on. Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez goes in no notes. Wow, what a cute, fun little romance. I was giggling and kicking my feet. It was so cute, so fun. And then like also hits you with like that real world trauma that these characters are dealing with. Very well balanced. Loved it a lot. I read Bad Summer People, which I'm gonna put in, should have DNF'd. However, it was under 300 pages. I read it in a day, so that's the only reason I didn't DNF it, because I was like, it's short, and I'm gonna get through it. How, like, this book though, it was described as like rich people vacationing, and then a body washes up. Oh no. But like that doesn't happen until like 2/3 of the way in. That like by the time we got there, I had completely forgot that was supposed to be like the plot point. I feel like the synopsis so overpromised and then the book underdelivered. It was just about rich people sleeping with everybody's husband and wife, everybody talking smack about everybody. Like, I can see how that might be for other people, but that was not for me, and it didn't enrich my life in any way, shape, or form. Then we have The 7-Year Slip, also by Ashley Poston, going in, gonna stay with me forever and ever. So again, magical realism done so well. This is about a magical apartment where people are separated by 7 years in time. Boy and girl meet in this apartment and can interact and develop a relationship inside this apartment. However, they're like in the real world, they're separated by 7 years in time. And it's like, how is this gonna work? How is Ashley Poston gonna pull it off? Don't you worry, she's got it handled. She's gonna pull it off, and she's gonna do it so well. It was so cute and it was so good. I loved it. Then we have Done and Dusted by Lila Sage, which I'm gonna put in, where am I gonna put this? This one I actually don't know. This one I'm struggling with a little bit, not gonna lie. I'm gonna put this in, I'm gonna put it in It's a Vibe. This book was not for me. This was like a brother's best friend romance, this is the first brother's best friend romance I read. I hate it. I will never read another brother's best friend. It personally for me was so gross. Because what do you mean this grown woman's brother cares about her sex life and thinks that he has any say in it whatsoever? So weirdly gross and possessive. that it just turned me off completely. Like, it ruined the book for me. Up until then, it was like, okay, this is fine. We're keeping our romance a secret. Western themed. The atmosphere was there. It was good. But like that, when like the brother found out and acted so gross and possessive, okay, couldn't do it. Won't do it again. So you know what? I'm going to put it in immediately jail. I'm going to put it in immediately jail. Actually, I changed my mind. I can see how it is for some people. It is not for me. I learned that very quickly and I moved on. Okay. Next, we have a novel love story, again by Ashley Poston. Gonna Stay With Me Forever. This is about a woman who, like, she's on a road trip and she accidentally, like, pulls off into the fictional town of her favorite book series. Is that not everybody's dream? Okay. So fun. And then she falls in love and it's like, how is this gonna work? Because, like, this guy doesn't exist outside of this fictional world. Whatever. Ashley Poston pulls it off. I think about it often because I was like, that was so well executed. I loved it. Then we had Raiders of the Lost Heart. I love me a good adventure movie, book, setting. I'm gonna put it in, it's a vibe. Again, stakes so low. This is like, I guess, kind of like an enemies to lovers. Like, they were academic rivals and now they're both archaeologists, and he's like, I got this exclusive dig, but like, you are the best. I can only do it with you. And she's like, all right, I'll do it. And then I think even on the book cover it says like, your tender mind. So it's just like a steamy little adventure romance. Like, it's a vibe. Nothing serious. It was fun. And then I finally got around to reading Two Twisted Crowns, which is the sequel to One Dark Window. This was a duology. Absolutely perfect. Absolutely perfect. I loved everything about this. I thought it was like so perfect as a duology. Then we had This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune. Again, she did Meet Me at the Lake. Neutral, like, it's a vibe. Yeah, it's a vibe. A very similar story. Like, they're very Canadian. They're very lake summer focused. Nothing wrong with that. This book was like 10 times hornier than the last one. Not that it's a series, but like than the previous one that I read from her. So I was like a bit taken aback, but I was like, all right, it's a vibe. I'll let you do what you do. Then we have Light Lark, which I'm going to put in should have DNF'd. I didn't enjoy reading this book, like, at all. The world building was so messy. I wish I could really explain this book to you. Like, there's all these different, like, islands. So there's, like, the nature people, the sky people, the sun people, the moon people, the dark people. I don't know. And they're all cursed. They all have their own little curse. And so, like, every 100 years, they all get together to play some games and try to break the curse. I don't know. It was so messy, like I said, and there was supposed to be a love triangle, but at no point did I feel like there was chemistry between any of those three people that I was rooting for anybody. Like, I don't know. I really just didn't care. I'm sorry. Home is Where the Bodies Are by Geneva Rose. I'm going to put this one in no notes. She did A Perfect Marriage. She did this one. This one is so fun because it's like their mom passed away, and so these like three kind of estranged siblings meet up together to kind of deal with her affairs in her house and all of her belongings, and they find this old VHS tape where a murder has been committed, and then they're like, oh my gosh, our parents have kept a secret from us for 20 years. Like, what do we do with this? Very good. Also, that cover design is perfect. Love it. Okay, and then I read Nightbane, which is the sequel to Light Lark. I'm gonna put it in, it's a vibe. I thought it was a little bit better than the first one. It had so much more context that really should have been in the first one. Like, the first one was so messy and so lacking that half of the information we received in the second book really should have been in the first book to set it up. So with that, I was like, okay, now that I actually have some context, maybe this series can go somewhere. Maybe it can, like, redeem itself. So I put it in It's a Vibe. Then Hello Stranger by Catherine Center is also, I'm gonna put it in neutral good. It was fine. Like, it wasn't my favorite book. It was about a woman with face blindness, and she's also a portrait artist, so that's troublesome. So she's kind of figuring out how to continue being a portrait artist while having face blindness, and she falls in love along the way. Neutral good. It wasn't super impactful for me, But yeah, it was fine. And then we have Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. That one's gonna go in no notes. Very similar to Just for the Summer. I think Abby Jimenez does romance so well. And I just have a good time the entire time. Like, it's fun, it's cute romance. I like it. Okay, and then I read Reckless by Lauren Roberts, which is the follow-up to Powerless. And I'm putting that in immediately jail. If Powerless had no original thoughts, Reckless had zero thoughts. And I'm so sorry because I know that some people like this book and I'm really not trying to like rain on your parade. I can see the value for other people. It was so not for me. Like, first of all, I don't know. Oh, yeah. Nothing happened in this book. Really nothing happened. And I'm not trying to give any spoilers away, but like, two people chased each other through the desert for 400 pages. Nothing happened. When I say nothing happened, I mean nothing happened. The logistics of how things work too also didn't make sense at all. There were so many spelling and grammar mistakes, which I Googled because I was like, I feel like I'm being gaslit. Like, I've read a lot of books. I haven't really come across any grammar or punctuation or spelling mistakes. I Googled it. It does occasionally happen, but there was like 20 plus spelling, grammar mistakes. Like, we were missing quotation marks. So it was like, when does this thought end and this sentence begin? No idea. Figure it out. You're not going to know. They used the wrong word for different things. Like, they used the wrong taut. Like, instead of T-A-U-T, like a string pulled taut, they used T-A-U-G-H-T. Like, the two are not interchangeable. They used, when describing the morning dew on the grass, they used D-U-E instead of D-E-W. Like, so many things were wrong with this book. Like, from a written standpoint, and then also from just like a logistical, like, how did this get through so many people? I really do understand, like, things happen in publication, but there were so many. And then also there was just no plot. There was just zero plot. I don't care. And I won't be reading the third one. Okay, then I read the entire Throne of Glass series. I feel like I'm going to put them all in neutral good. Because here's my thing. I cannot differentiate what happened in each book. I will say I did enjoy the Tower of Dawn, Empire of Storms tandem read. I can't tell you like what happened in each book. I'm gonna put Kingdom of Ash also in neutral good. I will put Assassin's Blade in no notes because that was my favorite of the series, the prequel. I feel like it was so important to Selena's character development, but I will say I did enjoy like A Court of Thorns and Roses overall more than the Throne of Glass series. So, neutral good. Like, it's fine. I thought it was really in-depth. It was very good character work. I did feel like a lot of the books were too long, and the series was too long as a whole. Next, I read The Housemaid by Frida McFadden, and I know some people, discuss her quality of writing. However, this book is going to stay with me forever. I didn't intend to read this within 24 hours, but once I started, I couldn't stop. I was so hooked. This is about a woman who gets hired as a housemaid for a wealthy family, and like everything is not what it seems, and that's so simplistic. But like whichever way I thought that this story was gonna go, it went in the complete opposite direction, like full 360. Like, what a wild ride. I had so much fun. Could not stop reading it. I thought it was just perfectly done. It's gonna stay with me forever. Like, that ending, wild. Then I read Love of My Afterlife. I'm gonna put that in. It's a vibe, because it was a vibe. It's about a woman who dies. She's very sad, single, lonely, like lives a really pathetic life. She died choking on like a microwavable hamburger, and she gets to the afterlife, and her afterlife therapist is like, "Ooh, I love matchmaking, so I'm gonna send you back to Earth for like 7 days to find your true love." And it's very British. The humor is very dry, but it was a good read. Like, it was a vibe. Again, no high stakes, nothing too serious, but it was a vibe. Then I read Severance by Ling Ma, which also goes in Gonna Stay With Me Forever. No matter how hard I try, I struggle so much with describing this book. It's a post-apocalyptic workplace literary fiction novel. Like, it's so hard to explain, but it's very reminiscent of the early days of COVID. Like, everything and everybody starts to to change. This woman like holds on to her office job as long as she possibly can, like after everyone has sailed ship. The zombies in this book are super unique. Like I've never read anything like it. It's really just a melancholy tale of what it means to be severed from your past self. That's all I can really say without going too far into it, but I loved it. I loved it. Then we have Love in the Time of Serial Killers. I'm going to put that in should have DNF'd, because this book is about a woman who moves it. Her father dies, and so she temporarily moves into his house to start like packing it up, cleaning it up. And for some reason, she's obsessed with true crime, and so she's convinced that her neighbor is a serial killer. Yeah, that's all about 2% of the plot. She thinks that for all of 10 seconds because he's got like red paint on him. They're just, oh, blood. And he's got like a tarp in the back of his truck. And then we move on. If you take away that subplot, it's just like an average love story about learning to trust other people. Again, synopsis oversold and underdelivered. Like there was so much we could have done with that. That could have been dragged out through the whole book. But no, it was like 10 seconds of this guy's a serial killer. Oh wait, no he's not. I'm stupid. Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. Gonna stay with me forever. I don't often envision myself as the character of the book. With Emily Wilde, I did. I was like, I am Emily. She is me. So I felt very connected, very close to her. And this book, it is more dark fairies fairy tale, which as somebody who grew up on the Brothers Grimm fairy tales, I loved this a lot. It was so good. Then we have My Roommate is a Vampire, and I'm gonna put that in It's a Vibe, because it was. Don't take this book too seriously. Woman moves in with man is a vampire. She figures that out pretty early on. They develop a relationship. The ending is where it lost me. Because, I guess to spoil it, I don't want to spoil it, but the resolution at the end is solved through the power of TikTok. Up until then, it was a vibe, and then it lost me. Then I was a bit angry. Next, we have Circe, and I'm going to put that in no notes. I really do love Greek mythology. I was a Percy Jackson girl. And I just loved the storytelling of this book. It's not really like a steady kind of beginning, middle, end. There's a lot of different like vignette kind of things that happen. I don't know. I just really liked it a lot. Just loved it. Then we have Once Upon a Broken Heart. No notes. I loved this book. Here's what I'm going to talk about the rest of the trilogy in a second. I read them a little bit apart. So the first one, so good. Woman was in love, and her boyfriend has left her for her stepsister, and so she's like, what am I gonna do? She calls upon the Prince of Hearts, the King of Hearts, whatever Jax is, calls upon him and is like, help me. And he's a devious little minx. And what's gonna happen? They're gonna fall in love. Ooh. It's such a good setup and setting. The first one felt a little bit young compared to the other two. Still, no notes. Then I read The Mother Thing. And for better or for worse, that book's gonna stay with me forever. This is about a woman and her husband. They move in with her mother-in-law, and her mother-in-law offs herself and then comes back and haunts them. So much goes on, so much happens, but that's all I can say without like totally giving it away. It was so wild. Then I read both the Pumpkin Spice Latte and the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore back to back. This is a part of the Dream Harbor series, and they're both going in It's a Vibe. The stakes are not high. There's nothing new or groundbreaking, but it's small town, seasonal, vibey romance, okay? I think a lot of people were disappointed by this series because it was very talked about on TikTok and Instagram. And then when people read it, they're like, that's it? That's what that was all about? And I think you have to know what you're getting yourself into. Nothing new, nothing groundbreaking. This is a chill romance in a small town. It's very seasonal. Pumpkin Spice Cafe, Cinnamon Bun Bookstore. Like, these are just vibes alone. Nothing wrong with that, but don't expect something crazy. Then I finished the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy with The Ballad of Never After and A Curse for True Love. Mwah, perfect series, no notes. I did think that the second two were better than the first because I don't know what it is, but there was just an ever so slight shift between the first one and the second two where they just felt a little bit more developed, a little bit more less silly goofy. All in all, though, I loved the whole trilogy. Then I read Midnight Sun by Stephanie Meyer. This is Twilight from Edward's perspective. No notes. What can you say about Twilight from Edward's perspective? I did a whole reading blog on this if you want more thoughts. I learned so much lore, and it was just so interesting to see things from Edward's point of view, so I have no notes. Then I read Wayward, and I'm gonna stay with me forever. I loved the storytelling of this. This is about 3 women throughout different generations, all of the same bloodline, the perseverance of women, and their willingness to keep going. I thought it was a really beautiful written story. That's really all I can say. So good. Cemetery of Untold Stories is gonna go in neutral good. And here's why. This is about an author who decides she gets a plot of land and she decides she's physically going to bury the manuscripts of the books she will never release. Such an intriguing, cool idea. It was a very short book. I felt like it under-delivered a little bit on that concept. I feel like it could have been expanded upon quite a bit more. But that being said, it was a good, quaint story, kind of the passage of time, what characters mean to us and to each other as writers. Like, neutral good. Neutral good. Then I read Love Theoretically, because we were all over the place in genre and mood and whatever. Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood it's a vibe. This was a STEM romance. It was a vibe. The main character loved Twilight. I was like, girl, me too. It was a vibe. Throne of the Fallen, I did DNF, so I'm going to put it in should have DNF'd, but I did DNF. This is the first and only book I've ever DNF'd. Should have DNF'd. This book is so long. I don't even know how many pages it is, but I DNF'd at page like 400, which was way too long. I gave this book way more of a fair shot than I should have. I really wish I had DNF'd it sooner. This is kind of like a game of cat and mouse through the underworld. I thought the synopsis was really good and really up my alley. I really wanted to like it, but I just found it so crass and unnecessary. Like, there's 2 characters having sex while talking to a third character, and just so much of that kind of subject matter that was just not for me. It felt tacky. It did not serve the plot, in my opinion, and it got to a point where I was just like, why? What am I reading? Where did the plot go? We lost it. So, should have DNF'd. I did DNF. Then we have Bright Young Women, which I'm going to put in no notes. This is a story about a young woman who is murdered by a serial killer and her friend who kind of has to deal with the aftermath. I think this is a very important look at how the media treats female victims of serial killers, and just so much. Like, I don't know. It was a very interesting, very good read, very hard read as a woman. Then I read The Serpent and, what is it called? The Serpent and the Wings of Night. No notes. Vampires, Humans, Trials. I had a good time. Like, I was so giddy. I was so on fire. I had such a good time reading this the entire time. And then the last 100 pages went from 0 to 60 so fast that I was like holding on for dear life. It was a wild ride. I liked it. Also, in no notes, I'm going to put Such Sharp Teeth. Very metaphorical. And it plays like it's a very interesting cross between fantasy and lit fic. And it balances it so well. I don't, like, this woman is literally bitten and starts turning into a werewolf. And it's like, can she still be loved despite this? Metaphor. Really good. No notes. Then I read Book of Night by Holly Black. Holly Black can do no wrong. I'm going to put it in neutral good because it was a shorter book and I'm so looking forward to the second book. It's coming out like closer to the end of 2025, which is crazy. I have to wait so long. Putting it in neutral good because I just wish it was expanded upon a little bit. Just a little bit. I just wanted a little bit more. And then we have Camp Zero, which is going to go in Gonna Stay With Me Forever. This is a story about the climate crisis kind of at its worst, and the rich billionaires are buying up land in Canada where the sun hasn't scorched a lot of the earth. A group of women are sent into this men's work camp to be entertainment. One of those women is a plant trying to get information. This was such a unique dystopian, such an interesting sci-fi book, such an interesting concept, but also like felt a little all too real. All of these scenarios are very plausible in the future if we're not careful, and so it's gonna stay with me for a long time. Then I read The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King, which is the sequel to The Serpent and the Wings of Night, and I'm gonna put that in. It's a vibe. Honestly, after the 5 stars that The Serpent and the Wings of Night gave me, this was a little bit of a letdown. Still a vibe. It was a duology. We made it till the end. I feel like it struggled with some pacing. I feel like it was like, we need to get to the point a little bit faster, and we didn't. So that's how I feel, unfortunately. Then we have Animal by Lisa Taddeo. This is going in neutral good. This was a bit of a tough read, not gonna lie, but this is women's stories at the hands of men, how men treat women and how that impacts women. Thought it was a very good book, but a little bit hard to read at sometimes. I think it's very similar to Cleopatra and Frankenstein in that way, where it's like, this is a really good book. I think maybe it's a really important book, but the subject material is just kind of hard to swallow as I'm reading it. Then I read The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry, which is also by Gabrielle Zevin, who wrote Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. I'm putting it in neutral good. This was a very short and sweet book about the life of A.J. Fikry, who's a bookstore owner. One day a child is just abandoned in his store and he becomes a dad, and it's a very sweet little story. I definitely vibed with it a lot. It was very short, but very good. Then we have The 9 Lives of Rose Napolitano. This one goes in Gonna Stay With Me Forever. I think that this was a really important book for me to read at this period of time in my life. This is about the 9 different ways Rose Napolitano's life plays out based on whether or not she decides to have kids. So the book opens with her and her husband arguing about her taking prenatal vitamins. He understood that to mean that she was open to having a baby, even though she's been very clear their entire relationship that she does not want to have a baby. So we keep coming back to this argument and the 9 different ways that plays out versus the rest of her life playing out. Very unique, very interesting. I just loved it. Then we have Body Check by Elle Kennedy. Immediately jail. This was at the phase of my life where I had gotten my Kobo, my e-reader, and I bought a bunch of really cheap books to see if I liked reading electronically. So this book was 99 cents. I was like, why not? I've read 2 hockey romance books, Icebreaker and Wildfire. I was like, let's try it. This one's Body Check. I can safely say hockey romance is not for me. Any sports romance I don't think is for me. Spoiler alert. For the end of this book, if you hit me with an epilogue pregnancy, I hate you. What do you mean this book took place over the course of 1 month and the epilogue is 1 year later and you already are 9 months pregnant? Immediately jail. That's all I'm going to say on that. And then Sky Shade. This is the 3rd book in the Lightlark Nightbane series. This one is also going in immediately jail. This is crazy. Lightlark is in Shoulda DNF'd. Nightbane is in It's a Vibe. And Sky Shade is in immediately jail. This is the most inconsistent a series has ever been to me. And honestly, I can't believe I thought Sky Shade was the end of the series. Apparently there's going to be another book. We don't need another book because nothing happened in this book. It was so repetitive. It was so nothing was accomplished. The author is really trying to drive home this love triangle still that I don't care about. I don't think she could do anything to make me care about this love triangle. I'm not rooting for any of these characters. I just simply don't care. And it bothers me. Moving on, Redemption Arc. We read Archer's Voice. That one's going to stay with me forever. This is about a woman who experiences a very traumatic event, and so she moves to a small town to kind of start over, where she meets Archer, who is kind of the town outcast. He doesn't speak. He suffered a traumatic event when he was younger that left him unable to speak. What a beautiful... This is one of the most grounded love stories I've ever read. I thought it was so beautiful and so well done, and I just loved every second of it. And like people finding their person and finding love through their trauma. Then I read Merry Christmas. Should have DNF'd. Nothing happened in this book. It was about like these two people who hooked up like 5 years ago, and then went their separate ways, and they're a little bit bitter about it, and then they meet up again because like the woman's brother's cousin's friend, he's hit, like there's some sort of like cousin twice removed, I don't know, somehow they end up on the same family Christmas vacation together, and it's like, ooh, can I open up my heart to him again? Can I open up my heart to her? Blah blah blah, should we try again? Like the stakes are so low, and it doesn't take them any time at all to reconnect and rekindle that. Like I didn't care about anything. Should have DNF'd it. Then we have My Last Innocent Year. No notes. Again, give me a lit fit book about women's struggles and women's experiences. Mwah! I love it. Then I read Book Lovers by Emily Henry. Neutral good. I think I liked it. I liked it better than Funny Story. But I still feel like, and I haven't read through all of Emily Henry's stuff yet, but I'm still waiting for that book that's just going to like hit. I just want to get it. I want to understand the Emily Henry hype. I feel like I've been a little bit let down, so I'm excited to see what's going to happen next. Then I read Bride by Ali Hazelwood, and this is so funny. I'm gonna stay with me forever. I did not expect to love a story about a werewolf vampire arranged marriage so much, but it was just the serotonin boost I needed. And I like the experience I had while reading. It was so visceral and so unmatched. Like it was just so fun, and it felt like being 13 again and reading Twilight for the first time. But I'm a little bit older and I get a little bit more, and like I ate it right up. I just ate it right up. So good. The Christmas Tree Farm, part of the Dream Harbor series, that's also going in It's a Vibe. It's a vibe. It's the exact same as the pumpkin spice latte in the cinnamon bun bookstore. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're just having a pretty chill, even romance, small town vibey book. It's a vibe. Like I literally can't say anything else. It's just a vibe, and I've had a good time. How My Neighbor Stole Christmas. Immediately jail. Spoilers. So remember how I said in Body Check that if you hit me with that epilogue pregnancy, I hate you and you're going to jail? Right. If you hit me with 2 epilogue pregnancies, death. Immediate death, immediate jail. Sorry, I tried to up the stakes there. I don't know how. What? This book takes place over December, and then the epilogue number 1 year later, and they already have a kid. That means within 4 months of meeting each other, you got pregnant. And then, one step further, epilogue number 2, you're pregnant again 6 months after that? Stop. I actually can't handle that. And on top of that, the book wasn't that good. Almost 500 pages for a Christmas book is crazy. It was so drawn out. It was so annoying. I did not have a good time at all. I also should have DNF'd it, but further, jail and then death. I Don't Like You. How My Neighbor Stole Christmas. Wrapped with a Bow. It's a vibe. This is kind of what I expect from Christmas books. It's a vibe. I'm looking for Hallmark level romance, and Wrapped with a Bow delivered. Nothing wrong with it. Chill Christmas vibes. I liked it. It was fine. Nothing crazy. Everyone This Christmas Has a Secret. This is a novella in the Ernest Cunningham series. No notes. Boy knows how to write a mystery book. I liked it. This was a novella. It was under 200 pages, and it's set up like an advent calendar. So if you start on December 1st, you can read 1 chapter a day and then figure out the mystery on December 24th. So cute, so fun. Of course I read it in one night. I'm crazy. And again, for such a short book, like no detail is overlooked. It's all wrapped up perfectly with a little bow, and I loved every second of it. We met in December. I'm also going to put in no notes. This is less of a Christmas book than I anticipated. I thought it would be a little bit more Christmassy, but it takes place over from one December all the way to the next December. So it takes place over the course of a year. It's very reminiscent of One Day, where it's like these two people are meant to be together, but somehow like they just keep missing each other. Very beautiful, very well done, such an easy read, very British, loved it. And then we have The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year. Also no notes. I listened to this one on audiobook, which is my first audiobook I ever listened to, and still so far my only audiobook that I've ever listened to. Mysteries and Christmas go together so well. I love it. I love it. I had such a good time, and it was so fun listening to it on audiobook. These two like mystery writers are invited to this another mystery author, like very famous mystery author. They're invited to her mansion to solve a crime, and then they're snowed in at Christmas, and like the stakes are being raised, and they're gonna fall in love, and I ate it up. Okay, and then guys, this is the end. I read Heartless Hunter, which I'm going to put in no notes. I just had a good time the entire time. It's about a witch and a witch hunter. Of course they're gonna fall in love, and I'm gonna eat it up. It's so good. This is the kind of enemies to lovers that works so well, and I had such a good time. The second one comes out, I think maybe the first half of 2025. I'm excited to read it. It was so good. Left on a good cliffhanger. Had a good time the entire time, and that's all that matters. So this is my definitive ranking of everything that I read this year. It was a pretty good year. Like I think I read a lot of like neutral books where I was like, yeah, this was a book. This was good. This was fine. And then I read some that were like life-changing for me personally. So it was a good mix of everything. There were some books that I didn't like. I have vowed to myself this year to DNF more books that I'm not vibing with because life is too short. Thank you so much for listening to me ramble about the 100 books that I read this year. I hope you guys liked this video. If you want more book content, more reading vlogs, more wrap-ups, everything book related, please don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!